So you know it's not a crime to be fascinated by all things criminal. And if you do like delving into the underworld, why not join us for a special live show on March 27th at the Cork Opera House? We'll be talking about the making of a cartel and all the wild and crazy stories that happened along the way. So why not join us for this special live show? Tickets from corkpodcastfestival.ie. I didn't realise we were all waiting for me.
As ever.
Yeah, I was just deeply engrossed in this story about Seamus Culleton and remarking to you, what an idiot.
Well, I suppose we're all wise after the fact, aren't we? He certainly, he's gone through an incredible cycle of news coverage over the space of basically a week, from hero to zero, I suppose, as they say.
People, when they attempt to utilise the media to their own ends, have to realise that the media is quite a rabid dog, and if there's anything in the background that you haven't mentioned, it's going to come out.
Well, you see, it doesn't always come out. I mean, I suppose we could say it often comes out, and the media is like a rabid dog, like a dog with rabies is wild, insane and unpredictable. So it doesn't matter how clever you think you are, once you become the centre of a national storm, there's just no way of knowing.
I think when you're looking for empathy, and that's what he was looking for. He was looking for support and empathy in the situation he found himself in. And then there was all this stuff in the background. So let's go through it a little bit, right? So Seamus Culleton is 38-year-old guy. He is registered as a plasterer. He went out to the States some time ago. 17 years ago, is it?
He went out sometime probably in early 2009. And the reason we know that is because he was due to appear in court in relation to drug charges, basically. He was caught in 2008. In 2008, it is alleged he had 25 MDMA tablets in his possession. It is said when the guards tried to arrest him, he tried to dispose of them, basically threw them away. And
he swallowed them. He'd be in some state if he did that, wouldn't you?
So he was subsequently charged, and he was due to appear in court in early 2009. And when that court date comes, he's not there.
Yeah.
And a bench warrant is issued for his arrest. So it is in all likelihood he was over in the States in between those few months.
And he was in the States on a holiday visa.
Yeah. So he's on a 90-day holiday visa, which I think more or less any Irish citizen can get. And so he enters legally but stays on, which is, an immigration offence. So he's effectively an undocumented or illegal immigrant. But obviously America has gone through a lot of different politics around immigration in that time. And he subsequently was getting married, and he was applying for a green card. And as a result of applying for that green card, he was on one of these schemes. He was in the Boston area, which would have a much lighter touch pre-Trump on immigration. So he was working legally, not hiding out, not living under an assumed name. He was working legally, but he didn't have the papers to be there. And obviously things changed under Trump. We all know that. The actions of ICE, the immigration enforcement police, have become arguably one of the biggest stories in the world, if not the biggest story. And he's picked up in September as he's driving home, and he's put in a detention centre in El Paso in Texas.
And he comes on.
Well, he doesn't come on straight away.
Right.
So he's in from September, and he comes on last week. So effectively, is it 6 months, 5-6 months? Nobody knows about it in Ireland. Presumably his family and all of that know. And we have had other cases of Irish citizens being arrested that have been in the press in the meantime. But last week he does an interview on Liveline, speaking about being in the detention centre, describes it as something like a concentration camp, says he's in fear of his life. He says the people there are effectively being starved, they're not being fed properly. Very, very emotive interview. Does huge numbers for RTE, one of the biggest stories of the year, if not the biggest, I would imagine the biggest of the year. And it cuts through, as they say, into the American media, because obviously there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people have been deported since Trump got elected, but very few of them. Some of them have become, stories and of their own right in the US. But this one cuts through.
Yeah, because he's on live radio in Ireland, giving details from, he's on a prison phone, obviously.
Well, not just, he's on, I think he's on he's allowed to make calls, but it's not just because he's giving testimony in there. It cuts through because he is like the perfect victim, I suppose, of ICE. So the reason is that he describes himself as having no criminal record. He says he's a law-abiding citizen. He's married to an American woman.
He's been there so long. He's been paying his taxes.
Yes, he's a productive member of society.
Yeah.
He's white. He's English-speaking, and rightly or wrongly, a white English-speaking person seems to cut through more than,
And he's clearly in the system because he's looked for the green card. There's a lot of people we've spoken about of late that have found themselves in the system because they've made the application and they're sort of, hoping for the best as such.
And of course, according to him, he was at the very end of it. He was just about to have his final meeting and to get his green card. So all of that elevates him. Rightly or wrongly, this is the way the media works. And I'm not passing judgment on it, but he becomes a kind of a symbol in the American media for the ill treatment of, regular hardworking people at the hands of ICE. And the liberal media promote him. Funnily enough, actually, some of the right-wingers sort of promote him as well, saying it disproves Donald Trump isn't racist, that he's willing to kick out a good white Irishman. So it becomes, and yourself, if you do anything on immigration, social media erupts. I mean, 50% of the comments on social media are about immigration. Even if you do a story
that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and pro and anti, not just one side. So it's just the way it is. So it becomes a huge story, but then something else happens, and and it has to go down to internet sleuths, I think is how it's being described, but basically people on Twitter. Because if you Google Seamus Culleton court, nothing would turn up. But that's because there is a court report in the old press clippings of the printed paper. So he wasn't coming up initially, but somebody obviously did a search and found this court report where a bench warrant was issued for his arrest, obviously in relation to the drugs charges, and also there's a sort of a charge of criminal damage as well.
You can only imagine how that happened. I'd say somebody was told what to go looking for.
Presumably.
It's like people will have known that people will know his story, people around him, people who are close to him, who were friends with him, who knew him at the time. There will be a handful of people who know his background and know that he sort of skipped a bench warrant.
Totally. And it was in the paper. Like, it was in the local paper. Like, these things tend not to be forgotten locally, do they? So what happens then is there's been a GoFundMe, and it's raised, I can't remember, but a huge amount of money. But the drug stuff comes out and the donations slow. And he got huge political support. Taoiseach, the Taoiseach, all come out, said, this is terrible, we're going to work hard for it. However, these charges, it has to be said, I mean, they are 17 years ago. He's a really young,
and
much younger man.
A handful of tablets.
At 25.
Far better off just not probably wouldn't he?
Well, you would have thought so. I mean, and obviously the charge hasn't been proven, but I mean, and he's done for sale and supply, but I mean, I think 25, ecstasy tablets, I mean, sale and supply, it's the very, very lowest level that you could get in.
I mean, he'd have been far better off facing the court and putting his case to the court, and
he would have not been imprisoned. But you were also, is that true? Because he got into the States, he applied for his 90-day visa, and he said, have you any criminal convictions? And he said no.
Yeah.
At that point, if he had gone to court, done all of that, he would have had a criminal conviction. Do you know?
Yes. So, but he may have, you're saying, that he told a lie on that application, because he may have had that ESTA, which, you can have for 2 years, an ESTA.
Yeah, no, an ESTA is which, sorry?
An ESTA is a visa, a holiday visa for the States.
Well, he would
apply for an ESTA and you have it lasts for 2 years, so you can go at any point during that 2-year period.
exactly. But at the point at which he applies for it, if they ask him, have you any criminal convictions, he can say no legitimately. If he had stayed and gone through the process of court, he may have got a criminal conviction, in which case he wouldn't have.
But if he'd any sense, he would have thought it's his first time before the courts. He's 25 ecstasy tablets. Would be very bloody unlucky if he got a criminal conviction on that.
Well, would he be? I mean, he may have got, he also had a criminal damage charge, and he also ultimately had a bench warrant charge. So he may presume he could have got the probation service. He could have also got a district court fine without.
Yeah, but the bench warrant caused him a problem. The not showing up in court caused him the problem. But had he showed up in the first place and taken his chances and apologised and suggested that they were for his own use and not for sale or supply, he probably would have done okay.
He might have done
district
okay.
courts for years, and really, like, when somebody doesn't have a conviction, the judges can be quite fair, because they don't particularly want to put somebody into the system unless they have to, unless they're repeat offenders.
100%. So he could have taken a chance, stuck it out, and then tried to go to the States. But he took another chance, which was, I'll go over there.
Yeah.
And that's the chance he took.
And he was, 21 at the time? He's 38 now.
Yeah.
And it was 17 years ago.
So you have to have sympathy. I mean, there's people that are 21 make these mistakes. I mean, it's just a part of life. And, it's
idiotic.
It's idiotic. And he's clearly not Daniel Kinahan, is he?
No.
However, he took his chance and he went over. And he ultimately ended up in El Paso in this detention centre. And then he took another chance, which was to go public. So this drugs charge emerges. It certainly colours it. And then, he's continuing to bring court proceedings to try, and the latest is that he has been given 10 days to challenge the deportation order. But what happens then, of course, is that he has twin daughters who are now, I think they're 18 now, they're adults, and they also come out and they speak about Seamus Culleton, describing in less than glowing terms their experience of him as a father, including how, according to them, he abandoned them, and they describe being very hurt by hearing him do his interviews. I think at one point he describes wanting to get back to his American wife and their baby, which is their dog.
Right.
And they go through their history with him, which basically says that they'd had no contact with him till they were teenagers.
They didn't know of him until they were 12 or 13.
Yeah, then they had some sort of contact with him on social media at some point, and then ultimately that broke, and then they had more contact with him again. They clearly have a big grievance with him.
And he sends them a text about what the weather's like.
Yes.
And what he's doing in Boston and all this.
Yeah.
That's the communication that he has with them. He's an idiot.
Well, he'd made a mistake, and obviously I think, the drugs thing you can certainly explain, but I mean, this is, it's over. I mean, it's a nightmare scenario to have somebody speak about, I suppose, something deeply personal. Now, these are two young women. Absolutely.
You didn't think they were going to come out either, did
No, absolutely not. And of course they're entitled to tell their story. I mean, they tell the story of growing up without a father, effectively, and the impact it had on them. So yeah, it just shows the unpredictability of how events can unfold.
Very kind to him.
Well, I
really do. I just think, what an idiot the whole way through, and the fact that he did decide that. I mean, there is some sort of a people who do this kind of thing and who come to the media and who look for the empathy. And he's obviously, the funds are growing because people are feeling so sorry for him.
They were
growing.
Where's
the money now?
I don't know. I mean, he may not have even
can't
been
get
involved.
It back.
No, he may not have even been involved in the GoFundMe, but it's either way, like it's sitting there. But I mean, look, so there's two things that's going on. Like, he has put himself forward in the most hotly contested arena in the globe, which is immigration, ICE, Donald Trump. I mean, and, there's a naivety in that. It's also, if he had come and gone on Liveline and said, look, I was messed up in Ireland and I had a bit of an issue with drugs and I just got out, would he have the criticism, I think, wouldn't have come if he had
Well, he mightn't have got the backing of,
he wouldn't have.
the Taoiseach and etc. in that regard, because you'd have
Yes.
had to go, well, he's there illegally. He went on the run from charges here in Ireland. He outstayed his welcome by 17 years.
Yeah.
And, the bit about the girls, the daughters, is probably personal as well. That just, you kind of get the kind of person that would do that.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, where was his head?
Well,
where was his head? I mean, I suppose he's in jail in El Paso for 6 months. His head is he's probably in a very panicked state when he makes this decision, and he probably doesn't realise how big it's going to blow up.
No, I think that is clearly the thing. He doesn't realise that this is going to happen. But, and I think...
What's happening to him? He's can appeal this thing for the next few days, and then he'll actually be sent on a plane back here.
Oh, totally. I mean, like, we know what's going on with ICE and Trump. And, the old roots of trying to put pressure, I think, on the US government, which would have been first in the media, do a sob story, or through Irish politicians, appealing to their American contacts. I mean, the Trump administration loves being in opposition to these things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So the idea that Micheál Martin is going to go over for Paddy's Day and, speak sternly to Donald Trump, who's going to back down.
Seamus Culleton.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those days are gone, if ever they did exist.
I like him a bit more now, though.
Sorry, Trump.
I like him a bit more now. He likes those kind of values in a person,
He likes a bit of a bad...
he likes a bit of a baddie.
But I think, like, the pressure that can be exerted through the media, I think it's very difficult now because this administration likes a bit of a row. And you can see even in the statements from Homeland Security, I don't have them in front of me, but they're not this bureaucratic language. They are like, basically, get him out and he can, we'll pay for his flight home sort of thing. So look, he's going to end up back here. I would say it's almost
music.
It's almost inevitable. And whatever about the
we were talking to somebody recently. I won't go into the details about it, but I was really shocked at how much it costs to apply for was it the green card?
Yeah.
250,000.
Well, I think that's it's not just that's not all going to the state, but it's the reality of hiring legal lawyers and all of that sort of stuff.
It doesn't matter where it's going.
Oh no, it doesn't.
250,000 to make the application. So it makes it even more difficult for people because it just feels like, who could have that? That probably needs to be sitting in your bank account or something. I'm not sure whether you actually have. I think you have to pay for that.
Oh, yeah.
It costs that to make these applications.
I mean, it's a huge amount of money. And I suppose the problem with the Seamus Culleton case is, like, there's thousands of Irish people over there who have built a life over there over a long period of time. Most of them built that life when the immigration laws, there was a bit of a see no evil, hear no evil. So they were working, they had paying tax, all of that legitimately in one sense. And the Seamus Culleton case, I suppose, they're making the moral case that they should be allowed to stay. They have families over there, they built a life. Does this damage their case? It certainly doesn't help anyway.
You're so goosed in a way, because if you have been there and you've bedded down, you have family, you have children in schools, you're paying your taxes, you've purchased a property, you have your finances stuck there. What do you do? Because you raise a head and you're kind of like, am I going to get shot here or not?
Yeah.
Or do you just lie low and hope for the best?
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is the problem. And I suppose
they really can't leave.
No, they can't leave or come back for family funerals or anything like that. I mean, I know that from people I do know that are in that circumstance. I mean, these things are really, really difficult. And, does the Seamus Culleton case damage their case? And remember, I suppose a lot of people are trying to wait out the administration, really, aren't they?
I think so. And then, they are.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the only option you'd have, surely, unless, because if you seek to make the application with paying all that money, you can fail. Like, it's not as if you're buying it.
No, I mean, and they are failing people. I mean, they want people out. I mean, you can hear certainly some of the members of the administration saying they don't care. They just want people out that are there illegally.
And there are also people, a lot of them are of a certain age. If you're younger, you would be better, able to re-establish yourself. But if you're kind of our age...
Yeah. Very young still.
Very young, perhaps, but still coming back to try or to shore up your funds from there to try and bring the money back from the States.
Yeah.
like any taxes you haven't paid are going to be stopped on you.
Yeah.
Very difficult to transfer money. Well, the criminals don't find it, but the rest of us, the legitimate society, do. You're coming back to a housing market here that is just impossible.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to start over again. Like it's
certainly, like if you look at Seamus Culleton, like he's a carpenter, isn't it, over there, and he's probably built up personal clients and all of that over time, and he loses all them, and you have to feel a bit of sympathy for him. Absolutely, do feel sympathy.
The dog,
and his child, the dog, and his wife Tiffany. So look, it's. But I suppose it shows you why these putting somebody forward as the
I'm
face.
with these girls on this. I think he's an idiot. I'm sorry. I don't feel.
Yeah.
Massive empathy for the guy.
Well, I'm with his girls as well. I mean, it's like that's a hard road, and it's fair play to them for speaking out and all of that. But he
abandoned them, and he went off and he sent them stupid texts about, that was his parenting was sending them stupid texts about what the weather was like in Boston. I mean, and then he comes on the national airwaves here looking for support, sympathy, and whoever came up with the GoFundMe. I mean, that has to be somewhat connected with him. There can't be just like an anonymous GoFundMe that people have been...
Absolutely, there can be a GoFundMe, but I mean, it could well be somebody connected with him. We don't have that info. But of course, you can. Yeah, you put up any sort of GoFundMe. But I mean, look, his family certainly were speaking to people in the media, his immediate family, and they certainly were
20,000 raised.
Yeah.
4 days ago.
Yeah,
and it's raised to help him.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So that money is presumably accessible to him.
You would imagine so, yeah. You would absolutely imagine so. So look, don't come to Nicola Talon for sympathy.
No.
When you do land in Ireland,
No,
Mr.
I'm
Culleton.
with the girls on this. I'm big time with them.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, we'll follow it. We'll see what happens over the next week or two. Indeed, he, I'm sure, will be greeted at Dublin Airport when he does come in by his friends in the media.
or possibly the Gardaí, though unlikely in fairness.
Yeah, no, I don't. I wouldn't imagine that anybody's too bothered with that. All right, okay, we'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Nicola.
If you're a crimeworld.com subscriber, you've probably already binged on our latest exclusive podcast series, The Regency 10 Years On, from the hit that changed gangland forever. This 6-part anniversary special revisits that fateful day when David Byrne was shot dead at the Northside Hotel, igniting a bloody feud between the Kinahan and Hutch gangs, one of the deadliest rivalries in Irish history. Here's a taste of the new series, exclusive to crimeworld.com subscribers. So that Friday was one of those really quiet days. I mean, we all knew that Daniel Kinahan was in Dublin for the Clash of the Clans boxing weigh-in. At least we knew he was due into Dublin the next day. That Clash of the Clans bout match had been heavily advertised. But the day itself there was just little going on.
So there was very little happening that day. It's February. It's kind of a quiet enough time for news in general. And Alan Cherry and Ernie Leslie were on the road. They were at another story actually in Finglas.
What was that, do you remember?
Well, it was one of these classic sort of district court stories where a guy had, I think some teenagers had thrown stones at his car and he got out and slapped the teenager. Always great kind of human stories because some people feel sorry for the teenagers and some people don't. And so Alan had been out there, but the guy had moved on. He'd called out to his house to see if he wanted to talk. He'd moved on, he wasn't there. And we discussed going to the Regency earlier. And I said, look, just go along and see what happens, divert there. We obviously weren't expecting anything. And obviously that point of Alan being there would be the subject of conspiracy, but we'll get into that at a later point.
For sure. So it was a case really that day of, one thing hadn't worked out, so go to the next. But also there was definitely a general sense of, if we could be there, just in case.
Yes, and as you said, to see who was standing beside the Kinahans and who wasn't from that bigger organised crime group. So Alan and Ernie went out. I got a call. I think you got a call almost simultaneously, but I got a call from Alan. I'd spoken to him earlier on the day saying, see what happens. And he phoned me up and said, there's after being a shooting and I think we've got a picture. And I actually went, yeah, very funny. But of course, he stopped me and said, no, I'm serious. we're after, there's some guys come out with a gun, there's shots fired, and there's total and utter chaos. And, I first thought is, get yourself safe. I have to admit, my second thought was, I hope they did get good pictures. But, you're still thinking they have to get safe. I mean, I know you probably got a similar call because Ernie and Alan obviously were in the same Jeep.
And of course, Ernie's the guy taking the photographs,
Yes.
so he's on the phone to me. So I actually had gone for a pizza for lunch and I had come back over to the office and the phone rings and it was Ernie. And I answered and he was panicked on the other end of the phone. This was real high octane stuff. And he's still trying to take photos. He's trying to tell me what's happened. He's told me he thinks he's got a good one of one of the shooters as they were running from the scene. He was trying to call up the photograph on the back of his camera.
Yeah.
Because it would have taken him a while to get it onto a screen, but he'd also sent it into the office.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he was kind of in the middle of doing a number of things. And as I was on the phone to him from memory, the photograph came into the office and we put it up on the big screen. And it was clear to see that this wasn't just one of the shooters as he suspected, but it was two. One of them was dressed as a woman.
Which is, of course, there was also this confusing story about guards coming in with weapons, and obviously we know now that they weren't ERU guys, they were guys dressed as them. But Alan was telling me this, there was talk of these guards, and then obviously there was, the crowd fleeing from the scene. So it was all confusing. But as you said, Ernie had taken a picture of the back of his camera. People will know what the photographer's cameras look like, and they have a little digital screen. So you don't see it in great detail. But we knew this is a once-in-a-lifetime photograph has been gotten.
Yeah, as soon as it came in. And of course, look, the newsrooms aren't as busy as they used to be. They used to be very busy, buzzy places with phones ringing everywhere. And it felt like a proper newsroom that day. I remember everybody's phone was going. People were hearing little bits about it. The news was starting to break about it. And of course, we were there sitting in the office with this photo. There's that sort of news sense in you that you want to run this.
Yeah.
And at the time, we weren't putting stuff up online. This would have been held for the paper on the Sunday. And this is a Friday afternoon. We had something really special here. But we also, I think, knew the guards were going to be desperate for that picture because they were two gunmen running from a scene of a crime. So it was a very compromised situation and there was a bit of arguments going on and there was voices were raised.
Totally. I mean, because it is complex. I mean, normally the journalism likes to keep itself separate from the Gardaí investigations. So Garda investigations go on and journalism reports on them. But obviously then you're put in this compromising position because you have guys running out visibly with handguns in their hands. And, they're obviously then disappeared into the ether. And you have to have a discussion about what is your civic responsibility in terms of, do you help the guards? You don't want these armed gunmen to run down the street and kill another few people. So it was a complex one, and people were aware straight away that the guards are going to want these pictures and want to use it for their purposes. And we also have our purposes, which is to tell what happened and to report on the news. So there was a conflict straight away.
From my memory, as the afternoon went on and I was talking to contacts and to other people who were involved in crime journalism, etc., it became apparent that there were no guards at the weigh-in. That in actual fact, the guards didn't seem to be there at all. They were called literally by the hotel and had arrived in response to what had already gone on. Of course, David Byrne had been shot dead in the reception of the hotel. We were getting photographs in later in the day, which showed a very shocked-looking Liam Byrne standing outside the hotel, his hands in his pockets, standing beside his cousin Liam Rowe, another significant cartel member. There was no sign of Daniel Kinahan. I was getting calls from people who were telling me that these professional killers had been flown into the country and had already been flown out. There was rumours, there was spin, and also there was the general I suppose, conversations in regards to, oh my God, what is going to happen next? I mean, all anyone knew for sure was something was going to happen. David Byrne was a very, very senior lieutenant. He was also from criminal royalty, from the Byrne family. His brother-in-law is Thomas Bomber Kavanagh. You know, his brother is Liam Byrne, and he's very much at the heart of the Kinahan cartel. We knew from the beginning that this attack had occurred as part of the rivalry between the Kinahan and Hutch factions of what was once the one organisation. And I think everybody was really trying to predict what this might lead to, but nobody could have guessed.
Nobody could have guessed. And of course, those rumours straight away went around. It was straight away focused on the Hutch gang. But at this time, if you remember, while there had been other incidents, for example, an attempted hit on Jerry Hutch in Lanzarote, it wasn't, those incidents weren't always public. People were straight away thinking this isn't the type of normal organised crime operation. They were looking at the weapons, saying, is there a paramilitary organisation involved here? Nobody knew fully. And of course, what people did fear straight away was, no matter what, people knew how big and how powerful the Kinahans had become, and the likelihood of them not striking back was inevitable. That blood was going to flow.
That bit absolutely 100%. But at that very early stage, I recall contacts of mine suggesting that the Hutches were an army. Did they have the backing of the dissidents? Was this going to, were they going to be very heavily armed? Because of that, they had contacts in the north. It was like as if people were trying to size up how two Premiership teams were going to play against one another. That's what it felt like. You've been listening to an extract from The Regency, 10 years on from the hit that changed gangland forever. Visit crimeworld.com and subscribe to hear the full series now. And you'll also get exclusive access to our other podcast deep dives on the Dapper Don, Christy Kinahan, Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, and more.